wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Yep, it's the world's most dangerous morning show, The Breakfast Club. Charlamagne the God, Angela Yee, DJ Envy is not here, but we got a Detroit legend in the building right now. Mr. Jason Wilson. Good morning, brother.
Good morning, my brother.
How are you?
All is well, man. I love New York. Love walking early in the morning here, and especially late at night. Give me time to really reflect and release things that I need to let go of.
Really?
So, yeah, I love walking through New York.
I would think New York's so busy and hectic, it's hard to clear your mind.
No, I've learned to, peace is not a place for me, it's inside of me. So no matter where I am, I could maintain it. And so I actually find the beauty in the busyness. And so it allows me just to release in a different way that I can in Detroit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, you wrote a couple of books. You know, you Cry Like a Man and now Battle Cry. Why is crying such a theme?
Well, it was imperative for me that I learned how, because my life, I was self-destructive pretty much, about to lose my marriage and my family. And I didn't know how to not only express them, but to even process what I was feeling. So I was only taught to express it through either fighting or really suppressing it. And as a result, man, I lost it one day, man, and demonstrably yelled at my wife in the kitchen, hit a hole in my refrigerator, and I had to make a change. And when I saw my wife, I saw her go from being like trusting me and loving me to her whole spirit was torn down in front of me. And at that very moment, I realized I had a problem, and that problem was I wasn't a comprehensive man. I was just a masculine male. Yeah, and I needed to learn how to express the gamut of emotions that God has given me, you know, more so than just being strong, a protector and provider. I needed to express being a nurturer, express being compassionate, loving, long-suffering. You know, when Kobe Bryant died in a helicopter accident with Gianna and 9 others, we didn't see a lot of pictures of him playing basketball. We saw him operating as a nurturer, him loving his daughters, his family. And then a hashtag Girl Dad went viral. Through over 1.2 million men posted pictures of themselves loving their daughters. And so we've always been nurturers, but we've allowed society to define us as men just by one adjective, which is masculinity, but we're more than masculine.
Can we talk about your background a little? Because this is our first time meeting. So I know that you have this youth organization in Detroit, Union, but I want to talk about you and how you started doing this work.
Yes, well, I actually was a popular DJ in Detroit, and actually did a few concerts with Public Enemy. I was in a rap group called Chaos and Maestro. So the Union nonprofit started as a record label. And so we would use, as a Christian, I would use the music to counter what, at the current time, what we would call like gangster hip hop. And I saw the negative impact it was having on youth. And so we created music to counter it, but we realized quickly that once the music stopped, they still had to deal with the trauma. And so we're like, man, we need to stay in their lives. We need to get in the schools more. So we went after our nonprofit status. And in 2007, we received our first grant for mentoring through the government, and we haven't looked back since. And currently, we've reached over 15,000 youth and young adults in Detroit. And we just purchased a 15,000 square foot building due to the demand of the Cave of Adullam, which is the Transformational Training Academy, where I use martial arts to help young boys navigate through their emotions instead of succumbing to them.
When did you get into martial arts? And was that a way of channeling anger?
Yeah, so it was interesting when my good friend, she was shot and killed when I was in the 8th grade. And we didn't have grief counselors or anyone come to our school. And I didn't know how to process what I was feeling. So I gravitated toward ninjutsu at the time. I was 12 years old. And I remember clearly just throwing called shurikens or ninja stars into the tree because I didn't know what I was feeling. And it was a way of an outlet to express the anger. But then I quickly realized if I only process my anger by hitting things, whenever that anger arises, I start hitting things and hitting people. And so from that day on, because I didn't have my father around, he was in the same city but wasn't in my life, I saw the sensei as a father figure, and I longed to have that affirmation. And I actually, pursued belts, but I wasn't really looking for belts. I was looking for a man's affirmation, someone who could guide me and teach me how to be a man. And it helped me with some processing, some of the training, combat communication, which I talk about in Battle Cry, and fighting. If we're getting ready to fight, I'm downloading all of your moves, your angle. If you move on my jab or my kick, I'm seeing how your defense is. I use that in communication with my wife. I try to read the room. How is she feeling today? Is this a good time for me to share with her how all of my emotions, or would it overload her? And so instead of, sometimes when you become emotionally free, when you break free from emotional incarceration, we can come home and unload too much on someone who already had a heavy day. And so I've learned to use combat communication to read, read my wife, read my son. He's quiet today. What's going on with you? Instead of yelling at him.
Have you ever misread them?
Oh yeah, man. Just recently, in all transparency, man, 2 days ago, I had to walk about 2 hours here. It took me a long time to reset back to norm because it was a challenging week for my wife, me and my wife, as just being married, conflict arise. Then being a parent, man, it hurts as a father because I love my children and I want to be the best dad I can be at all times. And I misread my son's demeanor sometimes, or my daughter's words, and, sometimes when you wear your heart on the sleeve, someone just doing this at you can hurt you. It doesn't mean that they were trying to hurt you. They were just flicking their hand. And I misread at times, but the biggest thing as a parent I've learned is to always reconcile immediately. Like I say I'm sorry a lot to my children.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, I want to ask you about, for women who are dealing with a man who may be experiencing trauma or doesn't identify ways that he can improve his own communication. What advice do you have for women that have to deal with that?
My wife, a lot of people ask her that because it was all new for us, and so the first thing I would say is that we as men, we not only have to unlearn what we've been conditioned to believe a man is, but also our women. And we have to give our wives and our women the grace and the space needed to do so, because you've been also programmed to see a man a certain way. My wife had never seen a man cry until me, and so that's number one, is to unlearn what you've been taught to believe. Number two, never impassively dismiss your husband or your significant other's emotion. When he come to you, he's trying to open up. He's trying to become comprehensive and whole. The worst thing a woman can do is shut him down or, I'm busy, can I come back to that? When you see that door opening, like, okay, cool, he's allowing me access to that heart. And then lastly is to listen without expectation. That's what she would say. She says, listen to your husband's or your significant other's heart like it's your girlfriend. Be slow to speak, quick to listen. And that's what she would say. And it's amazing how many, especially during the pandemic, I was receiving a lot of messages from men. They weren't scared of dying from COVID, but the thought of them having to stay alone with their own emotions and everything they were dealing with and not being able to escape to the game, to the club or anything, it was tearing them apart. And they were like, man, I need to learn how to really not only identify these emotions, but release them. But I said, you also need to know how to allow your wife to help you through that process.
Since you brought up COVID, what are some of the challenges that you've had with union since COVID? I'm sure things have shifted.
Majorly, we haven't been able to train to date with the young boys, and so it's very challenging. And then dealing with the city, we've got a new building, and then we had to shift it over from a school, the use from a school to a nonprofit rec center. So right now, we're going before the Board of Zoning and Appeals just to they need us to have 120 parking spaces, but the parking lot only has 29.
Yeah, that's a lot of space.
And we don't use it for that. So, but the city of Detroit is working with us to rectify this because our case is different. We can only file as a nonprofit rec center, but we're just a nonprofit. And so it's been very challenging. And we talk to our boys, and it's difficult not to have that safe space where you can talk about what's going on. And it's so effective. And it's like one of my favorite evaluations is that over 79% of our recruits, almost 80%, improve their grade point average without tutoring by 1 letter grade.
Wow.
And that's simply by allowing them to express what's going on in their hearts and their minds, and they're able to reset so quickly. So.
Can you break down what is emotional incarceration?
It is a self-imposed imprisonment, a mental prison that a man confines his non-masculine emotions and his true heart from the world to keep him from hurting others and even himself. And what's interesting about emotional incarceration, and we all as men, we can admit this, there is no door keeping us locked in. We choose to stay in there. And because we have to face or acknowledge feelings or traumas or emotional pain that we don't feel comfortable with, we choose to stay in there. And a lot of good men are tired of being bad guys. Even myself, man, I would suppress all of my emotions, you know, and because that's what I was taught. And because of that, I didn't not only know how to love my wife and my children, bro, I didn't know how to love myself. And that self-hate caused me not to really be available for my wife. And as I shared yesterday at the Mental Wealth Expo, she had 5 miscarriages. And I was checked out. I didn't know how to express the hurt or anything. And that to this day, it bothers me. We should say we had 5 miscarriages. No, I say she had. And I should have been there, but I was emotionally checked out. But now it's truly a blessing to be able to drop my guard with the woman who really holds my heart with care.
You know, the things you say in regards to your wife are so relatable. And it's the same reason I got myself together, too, because, you know, I didn't want to be like my pops. And, you know, I saw the pain my pops caused my mom. You know what I mean? And I saw how, you know, them getting divorced affected the family. So why are so many men just comfortable with saying, you know what, yeah, I'm married, but I'm going to still cheat. I'm going to still have a whole other family out here, another girl. Like, why is that okay, you think, to some men?
It's a feckless attempt for affirmation. It's a feckless attempt for peace. And so, you know, again, we taught, you know, masculinity as well. Being a man is having multiple women. My father told me, I was going to him proud, saying, hey, Dad, I'm about to engage to Nicole. He said, why in the hell you want to do that?
My dad told me, when I confronted my dad about cheating on my mom, my dad said, oh, you only got one girlfriend? He said, one day you're going to understand.
Hey, and I told my dad, I told him, I said, I don't want to end up like you. You're broke. You're still having to cut hair, Dad, in your 60s because you've had 3 marriages that failed because you didn't have any sexual self-control.
Damn.
But when I allowed my father to develop Parkinson's, I finally was able to get a relationship with him because he couldn't go anywhere. So when we finally sat and talked, he shared with me the pain of growing up and feeling lacking in so many areas. He was called to preach. He told God, there's no way on earth I'm going to do that because he came up in the 60s when the cops cracked down on the pimps in Detroit. Many of them became pastors. So he said, the last thing I'm going to do is be one of these guys. But because of that, he never really knew how to express what he was going through and what he felt. And that's why sharing Battle Cry, too, as where we are now as men, we got to go back and reach and help our fathers learn how to process what they're dealing with. So you got to think, my grandfather, not my great-grandfather or great-great-grandfather, my grandfather was lynched, beaten and lynched. And then after his lynching, my mother's family was terrorized by the police to ensure that none of them would ever feel like they're equal to white people in Fort Pierce, Florida. I saw that trauma transfer throughout generation. And until I allowed my dad that freedom to be human, I didn't hear him say he loved me until 37 years of age. Think about our great-grandfathers or those who were enslaved, who had to see their children sold to the highest bidder like puppies, but couldn't really express that grief because they had the family still with them, the few kids that they had left to protect and provide for. They didn't have time to think about the hurt, the pain, and everything else that came along with watching your children sold into slavery or your wife being raped. And so pass that on through son. Now you got men who walk around with the capacities here. No room for patience, no room for reconciliation, no room to resolve conflict. We're really hurting. We're hurting so bad that you could bump into me and I would shoot and kill you. No, hey man, excuse me, none of that. Because we're hurting because we're taught to suppress all of this pain. I told my dad, and it didn't make sense to me at the time. He's laying in his bed and the Holy Spirit told me, he says, tell your father, thank him for being a great dad. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. But what my father needed was affirmation. So I linked over to him while he was laying in his bed and I said, Dad, thank you for being a great dad. So I was walking out and I heard him like getting heavy in his breath, and I turned around and I saw the strongest man in my life crying. He finally had a release. And this is this tough one. So I went back over to him, I held his hands, and I kissed him on his forehead. And he wouldn't let me go. And he says, son, I love you. And it removed so many shackles off of me, and it freed me to really live from my heart instead of my fears, instead of trying to live up to this limited definition of what a man is. Now I can be a comprehensive man, which is a man who is courageous but also compassionate, strong but sensitive, a man who can boldly but freely live from his heart instead of his fears.
How important is it for men to give other men positive affirmations? Because, I thought about this after the Mental Wealth Expo yesterday, because a lot of stuff came up for me when we was on the panel having a conversation. That's why the tears came, because it's just listening to you tell me, oh, I'm proud of you, yada, yada. I'm like, damn, yo, I didn't get that the way I wanted to growing up from my father. So even just hearing it from another black man that you respect is like, whoa, it gets you emotional. And whether we realize it or not, we do that all the time. That's why we go get the cars, sleep with a bunch of different women, want to wear flag clothes, because we want other men to give us affirmation.
Yeah, it's, like I said, it's a feckless attempt for affirmation, even with women. It's like we call you trophy wives and all this other foolishness. You were created, you're not meant to be objects. You know what I'm saying? But when we objectify women, that a lot. When I saw that evil, that's what allowed me to break free from pornography. Because again, to have this right in front of you where you feel you can have control over the most beautiful woman in the world, I didn't know how to really give a woman my heart. But when I allowed myself to be free, I started cherishing women for who they are, even their superior qualities, not their equal qualities, because my wife runs our nonprofit. If it wasn't for her, I look at the stuff we do now. That's because I allowed my wife to operate in the fullness of who she is.
That's right.
I don't need you to be just at home with my children. God has created you to lead this organization, this ministry, and then eventually I hope she gets her own health center.
Right.
The goal for us to even be healed, brother, and I was sharing this at the expo, for us to heal as black men, I want us to heal so we can finally decrease what's going on inside of us, so that our sisters can finally unload the weight and emotional pain that they've been enduring for decades. That's what we as men need. Okay, look at how many initiatives are for men. I want to see more for our women. I want to see a sister who's done something really that she desired to do, and she's crying before the award or whatever, and say, if it wasn't for my husband, if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have been here. We always credit our sisters. But I want us to reach that healing. Now, as far as affirmation, it's so important, especially with our boys. I remember I had one kid, when I piloted the Cave of Adullam, the principal introduced me to this young man by all negative descriptions. Before that boy got to me, he literally was torn down by the time he sat next to me. I took that young man and for 24 weeks affirmed him, poured into him, taught him how to meditate, release the anger, the frustration, and actually the hurt of not having a father there. He smoked about 2 blunts a week. This was an 8th grader. His grade point average was 0.8.
Wow.
Within 24 weeks, his whole life changed and he graduated because I affirmed him in who he was, even the young man he didn't see. They saw the prankster. I saw someone who could negotiate, who's wise, who's clever. They saw someone anger. I saw a young man who would fight against injustice, who would defend kids who were bullied. That's what affirmation does.
But you start to believe the negative things that people say about you and think that it's true.
Yeah, think about it. Philippians, in the scriptures, it says think on those things that are good. It doesn't say think on those things that are bad, because we typically gravitate toward those things.
Always.
Yeah, and so it just uplifts us all, and that's why I told you, brother, because, if we're judged by our past, I'm done. You just don't know the stuff that I've done. I've been around, and I'm not proud of where I've been. I thank you for who you are, and I meant everything that I said, man. I'm proud of you, and that's why I affirmed you, and we need to affirm each other that way. And then more so, as I told our brother Van Lathan, when I was on his podcast, we're so quick to just deflect it or just hear, no, you the man too, I love what you're doing. Like, no, I want you to hold that, brother, because you're doing some great things, and I want you to really embrace who you are as a man. And that's all I ever wanted, man. And that's why I'm thankful I finally allowed my wife access to hear, because what causes men to really drift away, you want to feel important, you want to feel loved. But if you don't work as hard as you do in the community, in your home, How do you expect those in your home to give you the accolades that you desire when you're working twice as hard for those who don't even live with you?
That's right. And I mean, people want to be seen. Like, it's like when you tell somebody, I see you, or I'm proud of you. Not proud of what you're driving, not proud of what you're wearing, or I'm proud of you, and the scribes you've made to be a better person.
Yes.
That's
significant.
different.
That's major. And, as men, we live from what we do instead of who we are. We've adopted the grinding mentality, which if you look up the word itself, it means to wear down, to torment, to crush, to oppress. And that's why when you see most people who grind, they look wore out. I work hard, but I rest hard as well. And that's another thing. I take pictures now when I'm out. I see an elderly couple. Typically, the woman is peppy, ready to move, and you see the older man just on crutches or a cane, can barely move, because our whole worth, we feel, is in our work. I thought it was just black men who struggle with taking naps, but when I started speaking more, my white brothers, other brothers of different ethnicities was coming up to me like, dude, when my wife come home, I jump up. I'm like, what is that? Because we feel we're only worth what we do. How many Father's Days, and I use myself as an example, my family tried to celebrate me. I said, no, I'm good, I don't need nothing. Because again, we feel that we're only good for what we do instead of who we are. Our family, our women in our lives try to love us. Our children want to affirm us. But because it's deep, we long for it so long, we don't even know how to receive it when we get it. And that's the issue. And that's why I say we need to heal. And healing requires vulnerability, because you got to allow yourself to open up and release everything that's going on. Put it out in front of you so you can see it and start casting things away that no longer benefit you or never benefited you.
You once said when a man says he's tired, pay attention. Expound on that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, the suicide rate amongst men, we're 3 to 4 times as likely to die by suicide than our women. 9 out of 10 people who live to be over 100 are women. Over 70% of homicides are by men in the United States. So long we tell each other, we give each other pounds, stay strong, brother. Subconsciously, that's telling us when we're weak, we're not a man. You can't stay strong. I can just put the bar, a 45-pound Olympic, tell you to hold an Olympic bar out on the bench press. Say, I want you to hold that till tomorrow. You won't. We have to be careful of the misleading mantras that we say. What doesn't kill you can only make you stronger. That's not true. Or everything in moderation. No, less than an ounce of cyanide will kill you. So we have to be careful how we program ourselves. So when a man is tired, a strong man is tired. When I say believe him, what I mean is welcome him to rest. Allow him to decompress. You're tired, brother. What do you need from me? I don't need to ask you to do something else. You got to understand, when you're like us community servants, no one will ever stop you from helping them. You have to stop yourself. And that's what I mean by that. So many of us, we work past fatigue, again, for that affirmation. It's hard to say no. And that's one of the greatest things I've learned to master is saying no. I can always come back to say yes, but when I say yes first, now I'm committed to something, and then I'm typically operating in frustration. So when a strong man is to his end, my best friend Daryl, for instance, and I'm glad you brought that up, strongest brother I've known in Detroit, best physique. When I wanted to get big and strong in the gym, I saw him, I started training with him. Beautiful son, beautiful father, loved his daughters, cherished his mom. 2004, he dropped dead of a massive heart attack on one of my jobs. I used to own a construction company. In the gym, I noticed how when we would press the weight, he would press the 200-pound dumbbells. He would never let no one spot him. So I got it. In life, he did the same thing. I never knew what he was going through until he died, because he was programmed to never be tired. The only time I heard him cry, I saw him cry, was when he expressed the desire, man, just to drop my guard in my car. And I wanted to quit what I was doing, just because it's so heart-rending what we do. And he says, if you don't do it, who will? But make sure you take care of yourself. So he was strong, but he was tired. And he was telling us, but he didn't tell us. He passed out twice. Those are warning signs. But we just said, no, that's D, he's strong. But he was trying to tell us in a certain way, we just didn't receive it. And so now when a strong man tells you he's tired, believe it, and then do something about it to help him rest and recover. If not, just like an athlete, Kevin Durant, for instance, when he went back too soon after the injury.
That's right.
We go right back out after someone gets killed in our family. We expect life to be normal. My mother passed in 2016. I expect just to forget it and keep moving, and it still crushes my heart to this day. No, it takes time. And as brothers, we and sisters, we need to be patient and loving and understanding. And grieving is a lifelong process. Healing is a lifelong process. And as we always say, there's no point of arrival. It's a constant state of evolving, becoming better, becoming better.
You said, okay.
I was going to ask you, what are your thoughts on people who have a negative impact on your life? Maybe people who are around you, who are close to you, but somehow they're always being really negative. Is it something that you should work on or something that you should avoid?
Interesting. I'm real careful because a lot of times we say when people are toxic, you got to stay away from them. I used to be toxic. You know, ask my wife. Okay. I would sit around the house depressed, wouldn't want to go outside, angry, yelling. The very definition of being toxic. If she would have left me, I don't know where I'd be right now. I wouldn't have the beautiful family I have. I wouldn't be able to travel because I still struggle with some traumas. You understand? And so that's something each person has to, work out for themselves. So for me, if I'm around a person that's always negative, the first thing I'm going to do is ask them why, what's going on, because there's always a cause and effect. If a person is very argumentative or very sensitive, we're going to sit down. I'm going to say, hey, man, am I saying something to offend you? Well, no, man, this is not. Okay, cool. Let's identify where this reaction is coming from. If we're going to be friends, we got to know how to communicate. And the way you're communicating with me is not the best for me to be the best I can be and serve my community and serve the Most High. So let's work through this pain and whatever you're dealing with. Even in the union, we had a staff meeting just recently just for everyone to have an open floor to talk. Because you're working with 13 staff, people bring certain things to the job like, whoa, where did that come from? When everyone started sharing, I cried because one of them is like my sister. The pain that she's been dealing with, the trauma, needed gas, having to make a decision between gas and food. Let no one ever have to make that decision, and you work for us. So I need to understand. So when you understand the cause and effect, you tend to be more gracious with each other. And so that's what I would suggest, is to have a heart-to-heart conversation like, hey, I love you as my friend. I love you as my brother, my cousin, but the way we're communicating, the way we live around each other isn't really good for me. And so let's really dig deep to see what's going on if you truly value our friendship.
Man, you said something so powerful yesterday at the Mental Wealth Expo when Maxwell asked you, what's the definition of a man? How do you define a man?
Yeah. And I said, nothing. You can't define it. Once you allow yourself to be defined, you can't be anything and everything you have to be at any given moment. That's the goal of a man. That's comprehensive manhood. I want to be able to morph between, transform into everything that I need to be to accomplish my mission here on earth, for my family, for you, for my sister, for my brother. And that's the goal. Once you allow yourself to be defined, you've just cut off your potential. And so I tell people to live, I was telling the men, live from what we long for instead of what we lack. We tend to blame our fathers for not being there, what we didn't have. And now we bring that stuff to the present. We allow our trauma to time travel. Live in the present so you can fully be there. Stop. I have to let go of so many negative thoughts, bro. Being, the stuff I've been through, having to release it so I can embrace traveling, embrace being around people without having to always do this, you know? And that's the key, man. If you only feel as a man that you're only a protector and provider, how are you going to be there for your family? How can you have a relationship with your wife and you can only manifest 2 attributes?
Damn.
You're extremely limited. A friend of mine compared it to the crayon boxes, the ones of 8 and the ones of 64. As men, we take out 3 crayons out the one of 8 and we say we're going to stay in that area because it feels comfortable, it's safe. But the Most High created us to exude all 64 and even more. And that's the goal. When men find that space, I talked to them at the expo. They drove up just to talk and share with me their testimonies of, man, I'm finally free from emotional incarceration. I can let this woman talking to their wife or significant other into my heart, and now we're able to commune in love. And if there's beef or conflict, we can reconcile. And that's the key. Me and my wife, we get into arguments, things like that at times, but we reconcile. I know her intent for me. When you stop walking around wounded, I can say, oh, you're upset not because you're trying to hurt me, but either I've said something or done something, or something happened to you throughout the day. Let's talk about this.
I feel like this system that's been created called patriarchy limits men. As much as we think, it does give us privileges and benefits, of course, being men, but I feel like it limits us because it makes us believe we have to be a certain way in order to be a man.
That's true. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being assertive, strong, diligent. Those things are great attributes to have. They become a weakness, or we become toxic when we only allow our lives to be lived under those attributes. So imagine someone that's in a high position. He's not only strong, even the Bible says be shrewd as a snake. You understand? Be assertive. But what if that person was compassionate? Build community centers throughout the city, whatever that's needed. Help the elderly. That's one of the things that's strong in my heart, is that our elderly aren't taken care of good enough for me. That's the power of being comprehensive. You're right. If it's just a masculine male sitting at the top, it's nothing. You're very limited. But you give the right person power, you'll see change.
What is courageous transparency?
Basically just allowing yourself to move through your fears of being perceived as being weak, move through your fears of being judged, because you're allowing the world to see who you really are. It takes courage to move through that type of fear. And that's what I allowed myself to do, is like, look, I'm an open book now. I don't care what you think, I'm here, I want to be free. You're not going to lock me back up in emotional incarceration where now I have to perform for your admiration, you perform for your affirmation, admiration, your love, your respect. If you don't love me for who I am, what I've been through, my process of healing and becoming a better man, you just lost a good friend. And that's what it means to be courageously transparent. It doesn't matter what a person feels about you. I can freely shed tears now. How can you not cry over something that's beautiful? Or the little girl that came over to me yesterday, and I got to my knee and talked to her. She wants to be a ballerina, and just sharing her heart with me and her mother and the trauma they've been through. How can your heart not be torn with that? Even the Messiah walked through the streets crying. The most comprehensive man I ever read about. Why would you limit yourself to only trying to be something you can't be anyway? You can't stay strong. You can't. You're more than just providing. As long as you think you're a provider, that's all your worth is. So when you can't work, what happens? We become depressed. Many athletes, they don't play anymore. Why? Because their worth was in what they did. You got to learn how to become, live from who you are, man. The good in your heart. We have bad in our heart as well. But when you freely can live from what you really feel, and that's why the videos were going viral. I posted a video of me teaching my son how to hammer a nail in a 2x4. They get millions of views, and I'm like, why, what's going on? And then when I sat back and looked at it, we forgot what love looks like and feel like.
Wow.
And that's what this world needs to see and feel. And that all happens when we allow ourselves to be who we are and just let go of just the fear of being exposed and just be free. So many of us just walking around with so much bondage, man. And literally all we have to do is shake those shackles off and walk out. And we just have to decide, like, I'm tired of being this way, and move on.
You also have a documentary that you've been working on, right?
Yes.
Can you tell us something about that?
Yeah, that's really exciting. I signed with Lawrence Fishburne's film company, Cinema Gypsy, to do a documentary film on my work with boys in the Cave of Adullam. We submitted it to Sundance, and so we're waiting to hear back from them, but it's supposed to release next year. And we're really excited. You get to see them follow 4 of my boys, and you see the effects of intergenerational trauma, but then you see it broken. And it's so powerful, it's beautiful. Yep, and so I can't wait for the world to see that.
How did that come about? Did Lawrence see like your internet clips? Or?
Yeah, so a producer named Roy Bank, when that first video went viral, he reached out to me with a lot of other producers wanting to do a docu-series on my life. And I was hesitant, I didn't want to do it. And make a long story short, I liked him, he respected me, and I said, okay, cool, let's see what happens. Him and Lawrence was at the same, I guess, agency, and Lawrence came across the sizzle reel for the documentary and was blown away. And Lawrence, when I met him, just to see him be transparent with me about his father wounds and just things like that as a man, it was a personal thing for him to really get behind this documentary, because he says, Jason, our communities need healing. Our men need to see this. Our boys need to see another option. And so it was personal for him, and he's actually become like a brother to me, a big brother. And
that's a solid black man.
Oh
right
man,
there.
he is very solid. I mean, he invited me over to his home for dinner and cooked for me, bro.
Mm-hmm.
I was just truly humble. And I said, dude, I got to at least wash the dishes or something. And so while he's cooking, I'm washing the dishes. But to sit and this man, you know, him playing the role of Morpheus, that was my father figure for so many years, because I longed to have that type of Morpheus figure in my life to help bring out the one in me. And I often say everyone wants a Neo, but no one wants to be Morpheus, who can sacrificially give of himself, even if his life depended on it, because he believes in this boy so much that he could change the future. And so to really have a conversation with him and to hear his words of affirmation to me, and for me to affirm him. When he gets movie deals, I say, congratulations, brother, that's big. And he says, man, thank you. Or when I went to he has 2 houses in LA, I said, man, I saw all these posters of him. He's an icon.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him, I said, man, this is amazing, incredible. I salute you, man, and it took him aback. Because so often we don't want to give our brothers their props when we see them. I ain't gonna tell him how good he is. Now I'm gonna tell you how great you are.
Yeah, we call it, this generation calls it dick riding. When you celebrate with another black man, oh, you dick riding him, what you mean?
Yeah, it's cause and effect. Why would you say that? Because you ain't never received it. Brothers who receive affirmation freely give it. Men who don't, they hate it.
That's right.
You know, and so again, I'm really excited about that. I'm looking forward to just promoting it with him and getting to learn more about my brother. Yeah, but he's a solid brother. Yeah.
I only got a couple more questions. Galatians 5:17. That's a scripture you referenced in Battle Cry. What does that scripture mean to you?
It talks about the inner war that all of us face. The war between the right you should do and the evil that you may desire to do. And in Galatians 5:17, it's specifically talking about the Holy Spirit being in you that counters your flesh, your soul, everything that you desire that's wrong to do. He's there to blow the whistle before the foul. And every man knows, regardless of your faith, we all have to deal with that decision that goes on inside of us. Should I cheat on my wife, or do I remain faithful? Do I storm out because I'm emotional because my boss berated me in front of my staff, or do I go to him in private and express how I truly feel? And so that's what I talk about in Battle Cry, how to wage and win that war. That war, like I tell my recruits, the fight starts before the fist is formed, before a bullet is fired. How can you deal with everything that you're feeling inside before you respond to a threat even? And so that's what I mean. Is like, can I walk by the Spirit so much that nothing, the evil in my heart that I want to do, it doesn't even get a chance to even become a thought. And that's the power when you learn how to wage and win that war every day. You're fighting constantly internally so that you don't have external battles.
How do black and brown people learn to stop wearing trauma as if it's a badge of honor?
Acknowledge that there's nothing good about it. There's nothing honorable about getting shot. There's nothing honorable about hating each other, mean mugging, not being able to say, how you doing, my brother? How you doing, my sister? There's nothing honorable about, I guess, just the pain that we've been through. I mean, we look at it as like, especially I love hip hop. I came up in the culture. We brag about getting shot. We don't brag about living in a good neighborhood. We brag about being in the roughest neighborhoods. And so until we recognize that this isn't how it's supposed to be, yes, trauma will happen to all of us, but it's not the black experience. It's just not. And so, as we always say, just as trauma can be passed down through our generation, so can healing. But we first have to renew our minds. We have to allow, for me, it took for me to ask the Most High to break away my stubborn will, the evil in my heart. I didn't want to be his light to the world to help those who are in darkness see. And so until I allowed him to break me, I wasn't able to see that all that I've been through, the stuff that even for my benefit today, wasn't meant for me to stay there. So when traumatizing things happen, we have to let go and keep moving forward. But a lot of us, we stay there because we fear moving forward because of something else traumatizing may happen. And so as a black people, we got to start living from what we desire in here, the good that's in here. We love each other, man. We do. We just have to learn how to express it. And there's nothing weak or docile about telling you I love you, and who you are, I'm proud of you. I need help. I'm hurting. Just because something is wrong with me doesn't mean something is wrong with me. So when we get to that place where we understand, okay, we can break through what we've been through, that's when you'll see us rise together.
My final question, as your profile raises, how does your wife feel about all these women calling you Zaddy?
I didn't know they called me that. I didn't know they called me that.
You be seeing them on Instagram.
Oh man. My wife and I have a very transparent relationship. If she feels something isn't right, she'll say it,
Yeah.
But she this is a funny story. One day I met Halle Berry, all right? And I took a video for my daughter because my daughter, was into modeling at the time. And so I called Nicole, I say, hey, I met Halle Berry. She's like, really? Where was she at? And I told her at this conference. So we get off the phone and her friend was like, oh, so your husband is with Halle Berry? And she was like, yeah. And she kept looking at my wife, so my wife called back and she says, are you okay? Because, Halle Berry was attractive, she was our generation's Lena Horne.
Yeah.
But my wife was like, are you okay? Because I know she's beautiful. And I know, you together, you good? I'm like, yeah, I'm good. And we both laughed about it. But the beautiful thing when I got home and I looked at my wife, I said, dang, you look better than her. You see what I'm saying? And so when she knows, my wife, she affirms me, man, and I fight it. I'm still growing, bro. I'm like, dang, she'll touch my face all gentle. I'm like, what are you doing inside? That's why I'm cringing, because I'm thinking when my father told me I wasn't nothing. And to have a woman caress my face and to tell me I'm beautiful and she loves me. And as a man, you look in your mirror, you see your flaws. You ain't big enough, you ain't buff enough, you ain't smart enough. What can any of these women give me, man? What's a night of sex? I'm gonna give away everything that I got just to have a moment with a woman? That's not peace to me. That's chaos. I ain't got time to have 3 cell phones. I don't have the energy for that.
We chasing a sense of worthiness that we can't get from another woman. That's feeding your ego. Being with your wife, that's feeding your soul.
Yeah, it's she's a part of me, man. And so, they'll flirt. You can see them, they look at you, but I don't have an available look. A lot of brothers who struggle with infidelity, y'all look available. You look like they can holler at you. I consciously make sure I don't look available. I don't.
What does that look like?
I practice with my sister. We talking. I'm like, you know what I'm talking about.
Let me see. Well, he's got his ring on, so that's already.
Okay, so I do this. Okay, I take my ring off, but I'm talking to you, but it's respectfully. Oh, how you doing? I shake your hand.
That's right.
I'm not doing this. Oh, how you doing? I'm not doing all that. I'm like, how you doing? Pleasure to meet you. I'm proud of you.
Well, thank you. I'm proud of you too. What are you doing later? No, I'm kidding.
Oh, I say I'm calling my wife.
I'm telling you right now, taking that ring off and then having the conversation does not make you less available.
That's true. But the look is the spirit, it's the vibe.
Absolutely.
And that's why I tell my brothers, one of my friends, Stan, back in the day, he said, man, these women be on me, man. I'm trying to be faithful. I said, you look like you want them to.
You're right.
And he started laughing. And we was in the gym. And I said, look at you. He was like, I get it, dog.
You come in here every day with gray sweatpants on. Okay.
And so, and that's my thing. I just, I love our women. I do. And to talk to them yesterday, and just they need a man who doesn't want to get between their legs just to talk to them and affirm them.
That's right.
To hear from just a man who just wants to affirm you for who you are, not because you beautiful, I'm trying to holler at you. Man, these
right.
women would just, that's why I say, man, when we can get healed, keep doing those expos, man. I mean, we got to continue to do what we do. But when we can get healed, we got to sit down and open the space for our sisters to heal.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you're going to start seeing transformation. When we both can truly find that and get that healing we desire. And our families become whole. Then our communities will change. And then you got the world.
Jason.
Yeah, I'm so extra grateful for like the men in my life who do affirm me and have positive things to say to me. And it's not for any reason other than they really feel that way. And I don't feel anything crazy from them. I know their families, I know their wives and significant others, and it's completely comfortable. And I'm so appreciative all the time of people that are like, yo, Angela, you really doing your thing. I'm so proud of you. I'm gonna come support. Like, it means a lot to me.
Yes, and that's awesome. And
because sometimes people feel like men and women can't have these relationships where there's nothing going on. And if you could take a picture with somebody and like, oh yeah, he trying to holler. And you're like, dude, come on. Just because he's a man doesn't mean that that's what it is. Just because somebody can affirm you. But people sometimes are scared to even do that.
Yeah, but the more men who model it, the more men will feel comfortable and say, okay, this is what a man is, and that's what our women need, even at the union, just to affirm and love them. I got you. Don't worry about that. I ain't trying to holler at you. They need brothers. They need men in their lives that they feel that they got their back, and they ain't always wanting something, And so I did what is it called? Virtual reality. I was at this conference, and they put me in a headset where I saw through the eyes of a woman at work. And it showed how many advances men were making to this woman throughout the day. And from the handshake to just having conversation, I'm like, damn it, can you just respect me as a woman, affirm me just as a woman instead of you just trying to get between my legs, And so I'm glad you have men like that. I try to make myself available for the women in my life the same way, And it's so needed as men that, again, as long as we're seeking affirmation in the wrong places, and that's what I did for the longest, we'll never truly respect our women for the queens, the jewels, the gifts that they truly are.
That's real. To Yee's point, that's why I'd be so happy. I got so many women that call me their brother or their uncle, because I really wear that as a badge of honor.
Yes.
I want to be there for them in that way, and I'm glad they see me in that way.
Yeah, they need it, and we need women. Like when my 100%. when my mother passed, man, I needed a nurturer. I needed to allow older women and my wife access to my heart in that way, And so, and I don't need sisters trying to holler at me. I need a sister sometimes. I have women who pray for me, man. They ain't trying to holler at me. They praying for me, and they say, we know what you're doing. We got you. I'm like, man, I feel invigorated. I'm ready to go. And my wife doesn't mind it, man. And so, again, our minds need to be renewed so that we can truly live from the good in our hearts.
His name is Jason Wilson. Give him your Twitters and Instagrams and all that good stuff, bro.
My handle throughout all social media is Mr. Jason O. Wilson. That's MrJason, the letter OWILSON.
And I want to thank you for doing the Mental Wealth Expo yesterday. I couldn't even have done an event like that and not have you there, because you're such a leader in this space, man. And you inspire me, and you make me want to be a better man. Every time I hear you speak, every time I read your books, seeing you on Instagram, everything. So I thank God for your existence, brother.
Thank you. Feeling is mutual. Thank you. And it was really powerful yesterday. And I look forward to being at the next one, brother.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Pleasure meeting you
Nice
finally.
to meet you.
Jason Wilson is The Breakfast Club.